And then even,
I think we signed it. We signed it.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to get started. We have more people coming, so we'll fill in any gaps anywhere in the room that we need to. Ideally, we would like groups of 4, but if we're in groups of 2 or 3, that'll work as well, because you know in your own classrooms you'll have, you know, those odd groups that happen, and we'll show you how that works. So I'm Sarah Martin. I'm one of the secondary TSMs, and I focus mainly with ELA.
I'm Lindsay Peterson. I focus on ELA as well, but usually with middle school teachers.
Okay. We just want you to know we will have tech issues today because we've been playing with this all day and we haven't been able to get it to work well. So it's just a little laggy, but we'll take our time and we'll go through it.
Right.
All right, so on our agenda today, we want to talk about the why for structured collaboration. We want to really focus in on creating a collaborative environment because we can teach you all the strategies in the world, but if your kids aren't prepared to collaborate, they're not going to. And then we're going to practice some of these collaborative structures here. And then in your lab work, you will reflect on the collaborative environment, and ultimately you'll pick a couple structures to work with and do your lab work on. We also are of the mindset that practice makes perfect, and we acknowledge that you are all adults in the room who realistically, like, I wouldn't normally teach a PD like this where I walk you through the collaborative structures and say like, okay, this is how you're going to learn the content. You're going to do a round robin. You're going to do a pair share. But we also understand that practicing it in the environment is going to help you learn it. And so we will be doing some of those structures in here with you to learn about creating a collaborative environment and then just to practice those structures. Okay.
So our first practice is going to be the classic Hagen structure of pair share. How many of you have done pair share in your classrooms before? So most of you have probably done this. But we're going to start out with you guys do a pair share with your shoulder partner. So if you don't know what a shoulder partner is, you can look at the mat in front of you, but it's the person right next to you. If you look at the mat in the middle, one of you should be an A. So if you are partner A, please wave at me. You're an A, or you can just decide now who's A and who's B. Perfect. And if you're a B, you can wave. Perfect. So we know who we are. So we're going to be answering 2 questions. The first one that I want you to answer with your partner is your name, your location, your contact. So get to know the person next to you if you haven't already met them. And then the second one, have you asked students to collaborate so far this year? Have you used a specific Hagen structure? How did it go? You can talk about that a little bit. Okay. So we'll start with partner A this time. And then move on to partner B.
Sorry, I thought there was a timer.
Okay. No, there is a timed pair share as well, but this one is not timed. So I'm going to have you guys start by just answering question 1. So just do 1 for right now, and then I'll tell you when to move on to number 2. So partner A, go ahead and answer number 1 with your partner, and then flip.
Alexa lives in Florida. Where are you at? I was at Torrance as a special education. Yeah. Hang on. Is this my first one? Yeah. So,
first. Who are you? Where are you?
I grew up in the
About 10 more seconds.
For the one partner or both?
You can go ahead and flip to B. If he hasn't already shared, you can go ahead.
No, that's fair,
Okay.
I'm still going to go and learn something.
Alright, we're going to go ahead and move on to question 2. So herein lies the importance of clear instructions. So I'll make sure I'm clear this time. We're just going to focus on number 2 this time. Once I release you to talk, A can start, and then as soon as A is done, B can go ahead and start. Okay, so whenever A finishes, you guys can kind of time yourself on that. I won't notify B that they need to go. So now you're working on number 2. If you've used these before, what kinds of structures you used and how did it go? So partner A will have you start again, and you can go ahead.
I do like this. I have like waivers, but that's there for this semester sharing. I've been I was actually yeah, so I use this one for sure a lot. I just think for sure.
That's cool. I only have 6 students in my class that I teach. I don't know if it was a partner, but then I have like my table set up for all of us in one table. And so we do a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's really nice. Her with him. Yeah, I can tell you something. Like, we're all together, we can't go, you know? Everybody lives. Yeah. It goes pretty well. Or on you share with that person? Yeah. I can choose things. Hey. Everybody knows
All right. We're gonna go ahead and move on. So obviously you guys probably could have seen the need for having a timer in there for students. So if you wanted to make this more structured for students, you could put a timer in and say, A, you have this long to talk, B, you have this long to talk, or you can call out exactly when to switch. But since you guys are adults, we didn't do that much structure, just the basic fair share. I had a question about Kagan. Have any of you been Kagan trained before? Okay, has anyone been to a PD about Kagan structures before? Just like a basic, okay. Sometimes they'll do like a staff meeting about Kagan. So Kagan, I guess that's the author's name. Maybe you should be the one to introduce Kagan because you've been formally Kagan trained. Someone else.
Yeah, I don't know
Kagan.
his first name. His last name is Kagan. He's come up with some structures. You will not be Kagan trained by the time you leave here today. I promise you, because I went to a 5-day training. Okay. But what you are getting are the Kagan structures. Some that you can play with.
Yeah. So Kagan is anything where students are asked to collaborate verbally or in writing. Usually both. And some of the cooperative structures you'll do in your classroom are not Kagan, but a lot of them that you'll have presented to you are Kagan structures. There's the lag. We found it. We discovered it needs 5 to 10 seconds to catch up. Watch, it's going to be like 60 seconds. That's the longest it's ever taken. Okay, so we're going to talk about the why. Why do we need to have students collaborating in the classroom? Why is it important? So the first thing we wanted to talk about is the amount of English learners we have in MUSD, and you guys have probably seen some of these numbers before. So on the left is how many students are enrolled in MUSD. And then on the right, 5,777 students are English learners or classified as English learners. Of those 5,777, which I think is 27% of the district population, 2,525 of them are LTELs, which is long-term English learner. That means that they've been in MUSD as an English learner for 7 or more years. So usually by the time they get to middle school, which is my area, a lot of them are LTELs because they've been in an ELD program since kindergarten, and they're still classified as an English learner. And then we have about 2,000 that have been reclassified but are still being monitored. So after you get out of the kind of ELD system, the program, and they say, okay, your test scores are high enough to move you along, they still monitor you for a while, for a few years, to make sure that you're doing okay and that you don't need any more supports than what you're getting. So we know that collaborative talk is really important for Yales, and we also know that you guys are all ELD teachers. So you're not designated ELD teachers. Most likely at your site you have designated ELD teachers who specifically have 45 minutes or whatever the time block is to teach ELD. But we are all integrated ELD teachers, which means that we have ELs in our classroom and are expected to be familiar with the ELD standards. And a big way that we can help our ELs is giving them a chance to talk about things, talk about them before they write them. That's a huge scaffold that we can use, and Sarah will talk more about that. And then we also have our MUSD English Learner Principles, and a big one that we focus on here is 70-30 student-teacher talks, so students should be talking 70% of the time. And these collaborative structures are a big way that you can make sure that's happening.
We also have the MUSD High Impact Strategies. Has anybody seen this document before?
No.
Have you seen this before? Okay. If you haven't, I know that it was at their staff day. It's been something that we've had for about 5 years now. But ultimately, these are our high impact strategies for our students, and one of those under student engagement is collaborative structures. And we just went to a training the other day as well, and it was heavily focused on cooperative learning, which is the collaborative structures too. So this is an expectation in our district to improve learning of our students. And then on top of that, you have the remote, yes? On top of that,
there we go.
we have the Hattie check. So John Hattie is a researcher, and he did a meta-analysis of all the strategies or just things in general that impact students and how they learn. And so he has this scale here of effect sizes. And so he looked at the impacts that have reverse effects, just developmental, like as kids get older, they learn more, they know more, and so they grow. Teacher impact here brings our students up to 1 year of growth, but ultimately we want our kids on the other side of 1 year of growth. We know our students in this district are far behind grade level, and so we have to do everything we can to have exponential growth for our students. And so when we're thinking about class discussions, you could click it again. Classroom discussions is on the end of having a 0.82 effect size. So that is something that is going to move our students maybe even 2 years. If they have those opportunities to digest what they're doing in class and converse with one another, that's his findings of being able to impact our students in that way. Does anybody have any questions about this? Because I know that this can be confusing sometimes. When you get this, I have it linked at the bottom of all the strategies that are the most impactful, and you can click and take a look at that as well. If you're working on your goals and you're thinking about how am I going to improve instruction. So it's very valuable.
So we're gonna, while this is going, we're gonna talk a lot today about how to create a collaborative environment, because sometimes if you just go into a classroom and try collaborative structure without doing anything beforehand, it can really not work or go wrong. There's a lot of kind of work you have to put in your classroom ahead of time to make sure that you have an environment that is collaborative. We first wanted to go over some common misconceptions, and I would say probably all of these I've heard or said myself maybe
Yeah,
in the past, and I think the same is for Sarah. So you might hear someone saying, students are sitting in groups, so they're collaborating. It's automatic, right? I ask students to share in their groups, so they're collaborating. Or you might hear students don't need to collaborate, they should work together if they choose to. I don't want to make students feel uncomfortable. And this is probably the one I've heard the most, as we want to make sure our students don't feel anxious, especially post-COVID, so we're nervous to have them talking because we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, but there is a way to make them feel comfortable and still have them talking. My students won't collaborate. I did it once and they didn't do it, and I didn't try it again. Or this population of kids is just not motivated enough to do it. Okay, or this class just isn't motivated, we can't get it done.
And so we're not saying it's easy. Like, we're not saying like you're going to walk out today and you're going to be masters and all your kids are going to do it. But it does take some structures and some coming back to it and trying again. And so we're going to walk through that today with you.
Yeah, persistence. All right, give it a minute. Doesn't want to load this one. We're going to have you watch a video, Lord willing. And the question we want you to be thinking about is, what does successful collaboration look, sound, and feel like? So this is a classroom that is very successful, and I would say not a lot of classrooms are to this point of success. But we want to get your point of view of what it looks, sounds like, and feels like. As you watch the video, think about that. And then we'll have you share with your group afterwards. So make sure you're thinking of some insights as you watch.
And Lindsay, did they have notes on here where they could take notes on this one or no? Because we didn't tell them that they have access to this. Yeah. So here's some notes as well as you go through on the different strategies. But like we said, you will get access to all of this, so you don't necessarily have to take notes. But this is a place for you to be able to jot down some ideas. So again, this is what allows the collaboration to be successful.
To live by mistakes. He was like, he just want to live by himself. Like how can you say that? Solitary.
He's gonna keep his own business.
The school don't want to spend money, right?
Yeah, that means he's selfish.
And he's selfish and rich at the same time.
Where did you find it?
Right here, in the second paragraph.
Okay, gotcha.
true or false. Good, what rich?
I wasn't rich.
What was the He was rich.
Yeah. No, he wasn't rich.
He was.
false. He was. He wasn't.
No, this one, but look.
The big false. Scrooge wasn't rich. It's false.
He's false.
That's false.
That's
Yeah,
what I said. That's when I remember Christmas spirit.
Alright, we can stop the video there.
Alright, so to discuss this video, we're going to have you take part in our next collaborative strategy, which is going to be round robin. So the way that this works is we're going to start with one of the group members and then go around the circle. Each one of you is going to have 30 seconds to share to talk about kind of your answer to this question. So the question is, what allowed the collaboration in this group to be successful? What did you see that was successful? What was there to help them with that? So we have 2 minutes on the clock. Most of you have 4 people in your group, so about 30 seconds per group member. So today we're going to start with group member number 3. So take a look at your mat in the middle. Whoever is number 3 is going to start. If you have less than 4 people in your group, then you just each have a little bit more talking time. And I'll have Sarah start my timer. All right, go ahead, group member number 3.
So, I'm writing down a couple things.
students
So,
talking
first,
but
if
they
they're
are
making eye contact with each other, which is really like super important discussions to actually talk and engage. They were agreeing with each other or disagreeing and saying why. I feel like the why is a really big thing. That they were giving like evidence and they're like, oh, well then this and that kind of stuff. But no, that's not the case. They're asking each other questions.
All right, partner number 4 can go ahead and start.
There was a leader, like I feel like one person just reading it, and just always asking me what it was, and I loved it. And then I never answered. It was like, like nobody might not even direct my if I'm not saying anything at all, they were contributing something. Even like this is a higher level.
All right, group member number 1.
Like they're just taking that's it.
I agree. I think I noticed that, whenever answering, like, they were just saying, like, oh, it's right here, stuff like that. Like, I love that. I also think that collaborating with they're gonna be like, the answer is 2. And then they're like, how did you get there? And I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? So just try to, like, see what everybody else is thinking.
And number 2.
Kind of what I'm doing. I don't know.
Oh yeah. So like, discussions around steps ahead. Yeah, that's probably hard. Because I don't think we ever did that with like in my classes. And not about that.
All right, let's bring it back together.
I have my own.
Now, obviously, that video that you watched is like the end goal, right? Like, they're basically you in this room. Even though we're going through and having you do a round robin, like, you're adults, you interact, you're part of the conversation, you're interested. There's a give and a take in the relationship with that. Was there anything that else we noticed that made the collaboration good in there? Why was that good collaboration? Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about is like either agreeing or disagreeing with each other and going back and stating why versus just being like, no, you're wrong, or like, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really were all engaged in like the why.
Yeah, definitely. So you could tell that there was active learning occurring. They were arguing, debating, they were passionate about their answers and responses. Anything else that we saw in there? Yes, and then yes.
They each, I mean, because they had their own, they each had the same reference, but they all had a different point of view. Like, even they all read the same thing, each person saw something different in the reading, or noticed something different in the reading. So it was, they had how they corrected each other worked out well in there. It's kind of weird the way it worked, because they, even though they all read the same thing, they were still correcting each other.
Yeah.
They were seeing the same exact words. They all had the same thing, but they had different thought processes on each time. Each person read something different.
Yeah, they were taking their own strengths and they were bringing them together to create something even better and learn from each other within that.
I saw that they had probably had papers in front of them with the questions posted on the papers. They were probably there for them to fill out. They probably had pens on their desk so they didn't have to fish through their backpack looking for them. So there was a sense of accountability where they weren't just discussing, but they were actively putting something on paper. Well, Ms. Peterson talked to that.
Yeah, and I love that word accountability because that's what we're going to go into today. And not only was that accountability for the students, but accountability on the teacher to have that prepared for them and to hold them accountable to do that work. And we didn't see them doing that, but we could maybe infer like there had to be a lot of work that went into getting them to that place.
We had mentioned too, they already had the questions on there so they didn't have to think of their own question. Because sometimes you'll tell them, okay, this is what we're going to do, and they don't know what to talk about. So just like how she had us, hey, you're going to tell us what your partner, what site you're at, and what you're doing. So giving them those questions already gives them that extra leg up on what they're expected to talk about.
So clear expectations from that teacher. Perfect. Anything else before we move on? Okay.
Sarah, may I add something?
Yeah, sure.
Am I allowed to talk that I just want to add that some things that seem seamless really have been practiced. For example, she mentioned that students were saying, oh, I agree or I disagree. The teacher, I'm assuming, probably taught them some sentence frames of how to communicate. So those are little subtle things that make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. And so we were in a training the other day and this quote came up and it just really resonated with me in terms of what we're doing with collaboration. And so it says if you're interested in something, you will focus on it. And if you focus your attention on anything, it is likely that you will become interested in it. Many of the things we find interesting are not so by nature, but because we took the trouble of paying attention to them. So a lot of the times we're like, okay, share your groups, and then the kids disengage. They don't actually do that work. And it's because we're not giving that attention of focusing in on how do we get them there. Our kids can do that, but it is very intentional, the way in which we structure our environment and the way we hold our kids accountable to it and the clear directions that we provide for them. And if we do that over and over and over again, by the end of the year, you're like, okay, you guys are going to work on this paper. Here you go. And they've built that community and they will do that. But it takes a lot of work within that. So these are the elements that we feel are needed for student collaboration. One of them for our kids, they need to feel comfortable. We talked about that. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable, and so they need to have group collaboration norms, okay? So if you're in a classroom where your kids don't want to share, there's a lot of maybe toxic behaviors between them, like we really need to shore up those norms and give them an opportunity to create those. And we're going to show you some examples of that today. They need processing time. Like we can't just say, go share. Share with your partner. What do you think? Here's a question, right? And we don't have that question. How's somewhere for them? They need the opportunity to process. They need explicit directions and models of that expectation. And then finally, this part is the part that I see that falls to the side, is the accountability. Like, I did all of that stuff and they still didn't share. Well, how did you hold them accountable to sharing? And that doesn't mean that we're mean and it's like, you're gonna share or you're getting out of this class. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, no, I'm in charge. Like, you got this. I know you can do it. And this is what I'm gonna do to ensure that you do it. And having that attitude. And so we'll go into detail with that as well today. So the group collaboration norms. Is this me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Group collaboration norms. I watched Jennifer Mata at Torres do this with her students, and I think she was trained through ELD. And I have her slide deck in here if you want to do this tomorrow, but it was incredible. She had the students brainstorm what they don't like working in groups, and then what they do want to see. So the kids got to say everything that they wanted, and they did it through Pear Deck, and she was having them partner pair share, or share in a group, or round robin. And so they were very clear as a class what they don't like. And then they were very clear as a class what they do expect. And then as a team, they came up with norms together. And then they had their norms on their desk every time they were going to work together, so that they were very, very clear about how do we behave with one another, how do we act with one another. And so I'm going to go in and show you that Pear Deck. And we also got some other resources in here. So if you're not interested in doing one like this, there's some other ways with videos on how to create those group norms. Maybe you want to create it for your whole class for conversation, but this was one of her ones that we did. So you can see even in here, she has her Kagan strategy up here at the top. They got a chance to have their think time, so they thought and they wrote, what does it mean to work collaboratively? They defined that. They discussed it. She has a frame for them. All the supports necessary to be able to share. And then they went into what makes you a collaborative group member. And they went around and they shared. And so they went through that process and they were able to create it. So that's a resource for you that you can use tomorrow, okay, if you want to do that with your teams. But it's really important, again, to just be clear about those expectations.
Okay, so the next thing you need to make sure that you provide is think time, which you just brought up with that presentation. So giving students time with themselves to think through what they want to say, think through the answer before they do it with people. So we can allow students to think deeply about the content we give them think time. We can allow students to rehearse their response, which is especially important for our ELs, that they're going to want to practice it with someone. Sometimes before I even called on someone, I'd go over and say, I'm going to call on you to answer this. I want you to practice your answer with the person next to you before I call on you. So just giving them the extra time ahead. And that's going to lower student anxiety when sharing in their group. So it's going to lower that affective filter and make them feel more confident in sharing when they have that time to think ahead of time. And these are some ideas on how to provide that think time before you have students collaborate. So you could have a Pear Deck slide like the one we just saw, where students are able to write down their answer. Maybe they just have as simple as a sticky note on their desk where they can write down what they want to say. Sometimes I would even give them questions the day before. So if I knew I was going to do a Socratic seminar, I'd give them preparation questions the day or the week before so they could be writing down their answers ahead of time. Ask the students a question and ask them to process their answer in their mind for 30 seconds. So it doesn't have to be written preparation. It could just be in their head. Tell them to look at the ceiling, look out the window, or look down at their desk to avoid students staring at each other and laughing. And then have the students pull out their work from previous day and review it before sharing with their group partner. Think time should be fairly short and focused. So if you give them too much time, they're going to give them an inch and they're going to take a mile and maybe get off track. So think about, be intentional about how much time you're giving them to think.
Yeah, like a minute is good. Sometimes 30 seconds is good. Like it should just be short, quick, so they don't have that opportunity to get off track. So the next two you're going to see modeled in the video. It's explicit directions and models of expectations, and then teacher accountability for the collaborative expectations. The video should pop up any moment. So this happens before the students are released. So as you're watching the video, you are going to try to take notes on how this teacher here provides explicit directions and models those expectations. And then when the students are released, how is the teacher holding students accountable for those expectations? And which part is it on there?
It's the first box on the back of your notes. There is a box that says video notes, so you can be writing down some things that you see. And the question that's up on the screen right now is also on your page.
So you'll watch, you'll take notes, and then this will prep you for another collaborative structure that we'll go through with you. And so prior to this as well, the students do have collaborative norms set up in class, and then the teacher provided think time, so they went through and they highlighted and had time to think for themselves, and now they're about to do their group work together. Is it low?
All eyes on me. Even if you're not all the way done yet. All eyes, all eyes. Your eyes, please. Thank you. So this is the one time I'm going to have you do the share in your group before we release you. Okay? So can I have the student in desk 4 raise their hand? If 4 isn't here, go to number 1. So raise your hand if you're in desk 4. starting. So you're going to go through and you're going to say, I think the topic sentence goes from here to here. This is where I have the evidence. This is where I have the reasoning. This is where I have evidence. This is where I have the reasoning again. Okay? That's what you're going to share in your group. If you disagree with that person, when it comes to your turn, you're going to disagree and you're going to say, actually, I think the evidence is here and here. If yours is exactly the same, you can say, mine is the same as yours. And you're going to go around the circle, and then we're going to reveal, did we get it all right? Okay? All right. So if we decide not to share, though, I'll be looking around the room, we're going to do it again. All right? Okay. Number ones or fours, depending on if 4 is absent from your table, you're going to go ahead and start. Ready, set, go.
Another just maybe 30 seconds to write anything else down. Go ahead and look back at those questions. Did you see where explicit directions were? Did you see any models of expectations? Did you see any places where the students were being held accountable? Language the teacher used, actions the teacher used for any of those? And then I'll teach you our next strategy.
So I have all eyes on.
And what I'm thinking, because we have a group of 3 over here and a group of 2, well, because they need a pair to compare them, so they'll do 3 instead of just 2. Pass it on 3, and then they'll pass it on 2, and then they can compare with those 2 over here to do the comparison. All right, so the next strategy you're going to learn is pairs compare. And notice we have a group of 2 and a group of 3. So this happens in your classrooms all the time, so we'll show you how we're going to structure that for you. So we provide a question with multiple responses. You've already had the think time for that question, right? This is the question right here. What ways did the teacher provide explicit directions, model expectations, and or hold students accountable for collaboration? So in pairs right now, you're going to take turns passing back a paper. So each pair should have this paper that has 2 smiling pairs looking at each other in front of you. Okay, so each pair should have that.
Shoulder or face, sorry.
And it's your shoulder partners. Okay, it's gonna be your shoulders. For this group, it's gonna be the 3 of you doing the action instead of going back and forth with one person. What you're going to do for 2 minutes is you're gonna be quiet, so there should be no talking, and you're gonna pass the paper between both of you, listing off answers to this question. So you should already have some ideas, right? You could start off for yourself, explicit directions. What did you see? Write 1 note. You're gonna pass it over here. So you'd write 1 note that you saw, and then you'd write maybe a note for accountability, and then we would pass it back, and then we would pass it back. And you keep passing it with your partner until you hit 2 minutes. Now you have to look at what your partner wrote, and you can't write the same thing as them. And you go for as long as you possibly can. So that's the first set that we're going to do here. I'll explain the compare part after. Okay? So 2 minutes, passing the paper back and forth with answers to this question, just quick bullet points. Back and forth, building your knowledge. All right, ready, set.
Yeah, you start and then.
We can, yeah. In your classroom, tell them A or B start. Okay, here you already decided who's going to start, right? Okay. All right, ready, go. to write one and then pass it to your pair or your partner. Got about 20 more seconds.
Shut up.
Alright, so we're going to move into the pairs compare, and in a moment we'll have you two, just for the time being, just take your paper, your pens, and you'll just come over here really quick to do the pairs compare. And then you can move right back over there for the rest of the time. But now we're going to have the pairs compare. And so whoever has the paper last is going to be the person that reads it across to the group. Okay, so for example here, we have this gentleman here will read what he has on his list. And you will go through and you will either add extra ones that are not already on your list, or you will put a check mark next to ones that are already there on the list, okay? And then we will do the reverse. So then you're gonna pass your paper over. You can pass your paper over here, and now you're going to read, and you're going to go through and check off the ones that are the same, and then add the ones that they have. So you're creating a whole comprehensive list. You're doing a pairs compare, okay? And in this group of three, you can decide who's gonna be the person that gets to sit back and be beautiful, okay? All right, well, group of three now. All right, so we're gonna have you do your pairs compare. Does anybody have any questions on that one? If I was in class right now, I would be cold calling kids and being like, what are we doing right now, before I release them, because this is a more complex task, right? So you have to model it for them. You might do it in a low stakes with, like, you know, your favorite movies, and then compare or whatever. But you're adults, I think you got it. I'm gonna let you go, okay? All right, you're gonna get a minute for each person to share. Ready, set, go.
I'll go first.
May
It
direct
says,
peer to student.
holds each group accountable.
Second one, may
Tells number
focus on
one
her
or
goals,
ones to
we're not
maintain
done.
to know.
So I comment.
Teacher repeated instructions.
She told students who was going to start first.
Can I have all eyes on me as an attention getter?
Told
And
students
then tells what to do
to
with number four.
either read or disregard on the topic. And then the last one started, she said,
We had the attention getter, the teacher gave us the correct words to use when sharing, to kind of take out that anxiety. Teachers held them accountable by telling them they're gonna make them do it again.
No, that's the other part.
And then helps ease anxiety by saying.
No, then she said to switch it off. And then
If their person wasn't there.
he's gonna be writing the ones that are not there.
Oh, yeah.
So she had to actually just write down.
I have to
the
write
answer.
yours, and then you have to write.
And then just check on ones.
You do have which ones?
The other group hasn't started
I'm
sharing
sorry.
yet. Make sure that they
They
start.
have the hold each other accountable. So they tell number four or number one to raise hands.
Yes, we got that one. So we had teacher, by holding them accountable, was telling them they were gonna make it do it again, make them do it again. Did you guys have that one?
Yes.
Okay. And then she gave them the direct words to use. just in case they didn't know, like, what do I say? She's telling them, okay, I have this because of this evidence. She told them exactly what. Sentence. I'm not a classroom teacher. I don't know. I'm learning here.
One that
Specific to tell like which
is the teacher repeated instructions more than once.
Oh.
Yeah.
You sound like a broken record.
I tell them, I'm like, I said it 4 times, ask somebody else. I'm like, who? Ask somebody else. I'm like, the directions are also on the board, so I'm just like, plus.
I just let myself. I didn't tell my scared.
Alright, so let's bring it back together. How did the teacher give explicit directions? What were some of the ideas we came up with in our groups? Yeah, we'll go here and then here.
The teacher gave them sentence starters for what to use when they're sharing.
Yeah. Good.
Who's gonna start first, if there's gonna be a 1 or a 4?
Yeah. Anything else?
All eyes on me.
Yeah, make everybody focus on it.
What about model expectations? Did you see anything about modeling expectations?
The raise hands, the person's gonna go first, and then telling them what's gonna happen if they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, we'll start again. Hold students accountable. Some of the things that you've said are part of the accountability too. Was there anything else in there for holding them accountable?
The teacher walked over to a group that hadn't started yet and kind of was like, okay, so use number 4, like, to get them going.
Yeah,
for sure. Just let them sit there.
And one of the things too is just taking that step back and looking across the room. So if you know number 4 is the one that should be talking after you've given the directions, you take your step back, you look, 4 is the same desk at every place. I can tell in 3 seconds if they're doing what I'm asking them to do. So I stand back, I look to see if they're doing it. If 2 or 3 groups are not, I'm like, okay, wait a second, we have 2 to 3 groups that are not doing this. You guys, we gotta do it, it's good, like we wanna collaborate, we need to, you gave your norms, like we got this. And then you have them do it again. In this instance, there was just one group that was not starting, and so they stood back, they made sure that everybody else was working, and then you walk over to that one group, because the whole other class knows that you're watching them. And I've watched that in a class where it's like, all right, everybody share, and they've done all that, and they go straight to the kid that they know is not, and then they're here, and then all of them know they're not paying attention. Like, we're just gonna do whatever we want now. But the step back, stare, check, and then move on is a huge part of the accountability. And then just doing it again if they don't do it. And they usually will do it, okay? All right. All right, so what we'd like you to do, this is our last strategy, is a round table. So you have this paper on your desk. And we'll keep you over there actually for this one because it'll be helpful. So a round table is kind of like pairs compare in the beginning, but one person will start. So let's have number 2 have this paper in front of you. Number 2 will start. And you are coming, like you've been in the classroom, even if this is your first year, like you have experience and you have knowledge that you're coming to this room with, and we want to recognize that. And so we would like you to think of other ways teachers can provide explicit directions, model expectations, and hold students accountable for collaboration. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think of something. What are other ways, like in your brain, that you could hold kids accountable for that collaboration? Or how could you model it for them better than that teacher? Or how could you hold students accountable in a different way? Some ideas, okay?
Oh, you want to put it on the paper?
What do you think time right now?
I got confused.
That's all good. It's all good. I probably wasn't clear. Okay, so then now we're gonna do the round table. So there's no talking. You're just gonna pass your paper around. We're starting with number 2, and each person will put an idea until the timer runs out. Ready, set, go. about a minute left, so try to make it to every person in your group at least one time. It can be bullet points, ideas. Most of the time with this one, you just do like a couple ideas. Like it doesn't have to be a complete sentence when the kids are listed. Did it make it to everybody in your team? Like at least the last person's writing? Okay, last person. Perfect. All right, so what were some ideas? What else could we do?
Maybe kind of holding everybody accountable by just telling it's a group grade, not an individual grade. They kind of like all feel like they have to do something in order to, because everybody's counting on them.
Yeah, produce something together. Yes, definitely. I know like different sites are like focused on mastery grading, so you'd want to make sure that it's standard based, and maybe even that they have an opportunity to revise it after it's gone through everybody. Like everybody comes up with an idea. Now let's pick the best idea. Now let's revise it, revamp it, and put it under like a classwork assignment. That definitely could work. Anything else for accountability or modeling expectations? Great.
I put build relationships like within their groups first, so they trust each other and want to work together.
Yeah, definitely. So you have those collaborative norms, but these activities that you do with them, you could ask them questions about themselves, and they could practice those and learn about each other in a low stakes manner. And so then now they know the collaborative structure, they've also built a relationship in that group, and so they understand how it works, and then they also trust people. That would be incredibly powerful. Anything else?
One thing that I've done for accountability in the classroom is like when I'm doing cold calls for sharing after they've collabed, if I call on 3 people and they can't tell me anything, then everybody in the class shares. So I've only had to do that once in the class, and then since then everybody has done what they were supposed to do. Or if they didn't, then they learn to like ask the person next to them really quick, like, hey, what do you have? And then they'll share that.
There's some accountability there. Yeah, for sure. Definitely the cold call, like at the end too. I always let them know, like, hey, there's no opt out in my classroom. Like, you don't get to opt out. You don't get to tell me I don't know, because I've given you time to write. I've given you time to work in a group. During that group time, if no one knew, you had the opportunity to pull me over and have me tutor you. Like, you can't tell me you don't know, because I'm giving you every opportunity to know. And so that happens to me too. And I'm like, my kids knew what a counter argument was when they left my class, because every single one had to tell me, and they knew the next day. And it took a ton of time initially. But after that, they're like, no, when she says it, she means it. I'm not gonna push that boundary, like, and they kind of shore each other up too, for sure. Anybody else? I thought I saw one more. Yeah.
I liked her. She put incentives. So if they knew, like, if they all shared and did what they were supposed to do, maybe they would get some type of incentive at the end of that activity. Because I definitely have to use that a lot for my class.
Yeah.
In middle school.
Yeah, for sure. Middle school? Is that what you say? Yeah, for sure. Middle school. I've been there. Yeah.
I just wanted to, I don't know if someone mentioned this, but having a group model, like just with one group, just model the process. I was thinking that, and then maybe even like what you did, show a video of what a successful collaboration looks like. That's an idea too.
Yeah, even taking that video, that's what I'm thinking now, like, and putting that in that collaboration deck. That would be pretty cool. Like, this is our goal. This is where I want you to be, and I'm gonna get you there. And yeah, modeling it for them. So when I did this one, because it was more complex, I came over here and was like showing you with people what was happening. That would help as well. We made a comprehensive list of some things, and a lot of them are the stuff that you've already come up with here. And we have the mats linked in here as well. So these mats that are on your desk, they're linked right here that you can have access to them if you needed them to print off or edit the way that you would want to. Lindsay has had her students rate themselves or rate their partners on a rubric as well.
Erin knows I love a rubric.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a big fan.
Yeah.
Kids always had to rate themselves using the rubric, and then I go in and add my feedback. So there is a partner work rubric linked on there.
Yeah. And it's super powerful. Like I've done that with Socratic seminars as well, and the students, like I let them know, like you're gonna move up 1 next time. That's it. Pick a column, pick a row, you're gonna move up 1. And as long as you move up that 1 and you build their confidence to be able to do it. Okay.
Okay, so we have some examples that teachers have shared with us of how they have used structures within their classes. So I'm going to have you guys point out some things. Take a minute and look at this slide, and then we're going to talk about what was good. How did this teacher use those different strategies? All right, is there evidence here of think time? Someone feel free to shout out. Did they get think time here for this structure?
Yeah.
How much time did they get?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, perfect. Are there explicit directions?
Yes.
Someone want to read them for me?
For sure, it will start first and B will share as soon as he is done.
Perfect. Right. Do we see any accountability? It might not be listed on here. Any other things that you notice about this that would have helped students other than that think time and the explicit instructions?
Review.
Sorry, which one are you talking about?
Review the topic it
Yep.
reviews for them what it is.
Yep. So that's a good scaffold there if you think that they might not know what the definition is, and there's some more over here on the
We have
left.
our picture for our ELs. And when this was taught, this was explicitly like dramatic irony. We know as an audience that there's a shark that's going to attack, but this person doesn't know. So that's like revisiting that for the class.
And I think too, this would probably be a way of holding them accountable, is that they were supposed to edit their response based on new learning. So you can see if they added anything to their response from their pair share, and so that could be an accountability piece there at the end. We'll go on to the next one. Okay. All right, so how much think time do they have here?
1 minute.
1 minute. There's clear instructions. Who's going to start first? Number 2. What else did this teacher provide that it's going to help students be successful in this structure? Sentence starters. Okay, and then we have the image here too, which is going to be high interest for students. Anyone add about that? This is one that's especially helpful with math. We didn't go over this one today. This one's called Rally Coach. It's also a Kagan structure. So we have our clear instructions here at the top. This would be 2 people working together in a partnership, and they're taking turns answering problems. So one person is going to take the odds and one takes the evens. And then also there's going to be one person that's the solver and one that's the coach. So while the person with odds is solving this problem, they're saying out loud what they're doing to solve it. So they're not just writing it, they're saying aloud their steps that they're using to solve. And then the coach is looking for mistakes. And if they see any, they can step in and help. With this one, you'd probably have to be pretty strategic about how you have students partnered. I would say making students that work together, or maybe who are of similar levels. It takes some thinking, at least in my mind, of like, who do I want to have working together? That would be like a good coach and solver relationship. And then this one is not a Kagan structure, but it is a collaborative structure. So this is where they're taking turns reading paragraphs, they're switching off, they're creating a gist statement together. They work together to answer the question in the paragraph, and everyone must participate in the process. So there's a non-Kagan example.
And I saw this the other day in a classroom, and I almost literally cried because it was exactly that video that we saw where the kids were just taking ownership of their learning. One started reading, the others were writing the gist, they were collaborating together, and it was all of those structures that that teacher had done, and then they were like, now we're going to do it like this. So our kids can do it. All right, additional resources that we have here for you. We have the comprehensive list of Kagan strategies. And I like how this is organized, because if you're like, hey, I need my kids to practice quizzing for something, right? I want them to quiz each other. You can come down here and find the purpose, and then find the strategy that works the best. So you're reviewing for a quiz, you could do a pairs compare, you could do a quiz trade, and then how to do it is all down here for you. These are all game strategies, but yeah, there's so many. Obviously, like, pick a couple and own those before you move on and start doing everything. But you have this resource to be able to go, complete a worksheet, well, we could do this instead. Or we could do this with the worksheet. And then talk to your mentors. Like, if you're assigned a mentor, we can help you with this process too. Like, what does this look like? Can you model it? Can you do this with me? We're happy to do it to be able to support you in that process. This is a video, like I said, I'm a no opt-out, I'm a do it right or do it again kind of person, and I'm also a warm demander. So what that means is I have high expectations for my students. No, you're gonna do it, I know you can. My tone is always up here, but serious. And then if you don't do it right, like, we're gonna do it again until we can get it done, because I believe in you guys. And so here's some examples of that. We're not gonna play it for you today, but you can see what that looks like for you. And then the collaboration mats, again, you have access to that. You have another little article or podcast, you can listen to it as well, about what does it mean to be a warm demander, because sometimes, like, we get frustrated in class. Like, I asked this kid to do it, I spent all last night planning this lesson, this kid isn't doing it, and you know, the warm demander doesn't come out, just the demander comes out. And so how do we be a warm demander with our kids, because that's how you're gonna get them. So here's our little recap for you today. We went over the why. We talked about creating that collaborative culture, and really, like, we need to spend a lot of time on this accountability part here, okay? Like, that is going to be the game changer. And then we practice these 4 collaborative structures that you have here today, okay? So that's a little recap of what we did. And then we're gonna have you practice one of those strategies one more time in order to do a little bit of reflection. It's an easier one.
Yes. So we're gonna do round robin again, which is strategy 2. So as soon as it comes up, there are a couple of questions at the top that you're gonna talk about. With round robin, you're gonna go around with your whole group. Today, I'm gonna have, let's have number 4 start us off in a minute. Let's get the questions first. Are there questions at the top? Yeah, there they are. Okay, so the questions that you're going to be answering, what are your biggest takeaways or aha moments from today's training? And then what are areas of strength and areas for improvement? So number 4 is going to get us started. Number 4 is going to answer both of those questions in 30 seconds, and then we'll go on to number 1.
So we'll give you a second to think. Well, we'll give you 30. Some time to process. All right, 4 when you're ready. Right, 4 starts.
Can you get paper in here, pass them back and forth, and have me, one kid write something, and then I can write, go back and forth, and then I can work in our groups to share, just like we did. Not really sure what my strengths are, but. And areas of improvement.
So I I'm doing a lot of those. I just didn't know if they were
And getting them to all share, like, and hold them accountable,
But I think
and just
focusing on
implementing different
specific
strategies so that at least
capturing those and making them
My biggest takeaway,
Moving on to partner 1. Everybody in the
I know I just spent time single, I don't think now that I'm faster about including one. I think one of my strengths is holding kids accountable, so now they know, like, okay, when she says do it, or we're gonna do it, go do it, right, so you might as well do it first time. And then I move it to understand then, and then also trying to not get frustrated sometimes, even though we'll get frustrated, but try not to shut it.
Number 2.
My biggest takeaway or aha moment is that you just have strategies that I do like the partner or the 1 to 4, 5 and 6. And then I guess just utilizing that. And then my area I don't quite have one. The areas for improvement would be for my students to talk more. Sped class is really small and they can't stand each other.
And number one.
Trying to find different ways for them to talk to would be my 3 area.
Strength that I see is that once they're in the shop,
silent big time. When I did my dance unit though, because I did have the third up, and I would have had each one. It's your job to think of a move for the dance. It's your job to think of a move. That way they were all thinking, collaborating together. So I wish I would have had this for that.
And I'll give you an extra 30 seconds because we have a group with 5 members, so take an extra 30 if anyone else wants to share.
Being a warm demander, because I'm very good at talking with them one-on-one, being like, hey, you need to get this done. And showing them like, I do care about you and this is gonna get done whether you like it or not. So that is one of my strengths. And my weakness would be I don't use it. So I don't know how to influence that. And I probably can't.
Yeah, I think,
well, the first one we can use.
as far as they just take creating that ticket, if you will, or something.
All right, well, we're gonna bring our part to a close. We really appreciate you coming, being like, honestly, it's really hard for me to have you guys do structures that I would do in a classroom. Like, as a facilitator, like asking you to do that makes me feel super uncomfortable because I feel like as adults, it's a little weird to be treated like kids in that way. So we appreciate you being a part of it because really that's the best way to learn the structures themselves. So I promise, like as we move forward, if the PD is with us, like we will not be doing student structures for you unless it's the collaborative PD. We do value your feedback and want to be better, so if you could please give us some feedback here. You can take a picture, it'll link it. It's a really quick survey. And then as soon as you are done with that, your crew from last week is gonna come up and review some things with you. And then everybody else is with the classroom management course, yes? Is there anybody in here that's not classroom management course?
Anyone not taking the units?
Not taking units?
You're not taking the units? So after I'm done, then Trish will go. You can go when she stands up.
Go grab it.
Excuse me.